Right, welcome back to the channel. Now, I, rightly or wrongly, probably wrongly, assume that you lot out there that watch my videos know and understand as much as I do and what we do with, you're from a farming background or you're from construction or earth moving or into maintenance and stuff like that. The thing is, it's been quite apparent from some of the comments that a lot of you aren't involved in those industries. In fact, we've got carpenters, we've got office workers, accountants.
Mugs, pugs, thugs, nitwits, halfwits, dimwits.
And they're like, love the videos, love seeing like you get stuff running, but I didn't really understand how you did it. The bits that you changed or swapped or checked. And I'm thinking, you're right, why would you know that sort of stuff? And there's other people that do know the stuff. I said, Mucker, just do some of the old basic stuff like you used to, the old monkey maintenance and stuff. So anyway, that's what we're going to do today. We are going to look at the Super Major and we're going to look at its lift pump. Now, lift pumps often come up in other people's channels. And it seems that they don't understand what they do or why they're there or how they work.
It just does.
So we're going to look at the issue that I've got with mine. And while we're doing that, we'll also make sure that I try and explain how they work and what happens if they fail and all those little things. And then, yeah, that way we'll all know.
Which means you know more than me.
And then I've got a bit of a predicament, which you could possibly help me with. And that's concerning the Super Major. Because once I've done these couple of little jobs to it, it's virtually done as far as I want to take it. And I need your input as to what happens next. Let's go on with this lift pump and I'll do the question where you can join in later on in the video. So what's the lift pump? Well, it's this down here. Now that's an injector pump. That's the lift pump, all right? Not to be confused. Because you often get people talking about, oh yeah, and the diesel pump on this. Hang on a minute, that's the injector pump. That's what actually creates the high pressure fuel to the injector nozzles here to atomize it. These injectors here, they atomize the diesel fuel so it can combust. This is simply the pump that takes the diesel fuel from the fuel tank here and it then makes sure that that pump is kept supplied at all times. That's what it does. Simple as that. Now, when I take the pump off, we'll have a bit more of a closer look at it and just explain briefly how it works. As I said, it's very, very simple. But why are we doing this lift pump on the Super Major? Well, that also is very simple. So when we were putting this other engine in, now, just so you know, again, in case you've joined us recently, this Super Major is in very, very straight sort of unmolested order. However, the engine itself that was in this originally was cracked in 4 places. It's basically scrap. Now, a lot of people say, oh, well, keep with originality and you can do that. Hang on a minute. Originality, right, means that I would go with another early Super Major engine, which has the vacuum type governor on the injector pump and not the mechanical type. Everything else is basically, to the human eye, is the same. And it does the same job. But here's the thing. If I'm swapping out the engine and it's not the original engine that was originally in it when it left the factory, I'm beyond caring then. So I thought I might as well put in a better engine. So I put in the slightly later Super Major engine, which has got the mechanical governor on the injector pump. All right? So that's what I've done. Now, in doing so, I would have had a later type pump, which doesn't have the bowl there. But I want to keep that. I quite like that design because you can see what's going on in there. When we were doing this, I was away somewhere. I said, look, just make a list of the bits you want, order them, and then we'll fit them. So on my return, there was a box of bits, various parts and whatever that we needed to do the swap over of the engines. And they said, and the best will in the world, they said, look, the pump we got was cheaper than the Agriline one that we could have got. I was like, you didn't get the lift pump from Agriline? No, we found one cheaper online. And I'm like, right. Anyway, the pump's fine, except that the gasket that they supplied with it is like fucking toilet paper. It's so thin. But at the time, that's all we had. We put it on. It's all right, but it does start to dribble when you start the engine and it runs. It does start then to let oil out. So the first thing we'll do is we'll disconnect these pipes. So we've got an inlet and then we've got the outlet pipe here. Right, well, we'll get this undone here first. Right, that is now out of there as far as I can go. I need to undo that bolt there and that bolt there, and then we should be able to draw the pump off, and I can explain a little bit more about how it works. Right, you can just draw that out of there. Now, and what I'm going to do is just empty that. Okay, now here's the gasket that came with the pump. As I said, it's not the best. There we go. Right, muckers. So this is the lift pump. Right, so let me just put that down here and I'll show you what's what. So this side here, that's the inlet side. That's where the fuel comes from, the fuel tank. All right. Now, it's important to remember that on this side, obviously, because it's a pump, it's being sucked. So it's under like a negative pressure, like a vacuum, all right? Not very high pressure, but just enough so it sucks. Like you're sucking the straw, you know, of like a milkshake. Same sort of thing, all right? Now, the other side is where the outlet side is, just where the fuel delivery is. That's where it goes to the, well, I'll tell you exactly what it goes to. It goes to the filter housing here, goes in there. And then from there, it goes to the injector pump, remember? And that's where then everything's sort of pressurized to go to the injectors and then into the fired into the bores. All right? So this is obviously a very, high pressure delivery system. This is low pressure. So it's vacuum this side from the tank. It sort of sucks it, draws it from the tank and then pushes it up into the filter. Right, so this little thing here is the hand primer. Now what this does, you listen to this. Oops. That's working, there's loads of fuel in there, look. So it's trying to suck fuel as if it was from the tank, from there. And then let's try to push it out of there, which is good. Right, well, this is the thing. That's fine when you're trying to prime the engine, all right? And you want to get fuel from the tank to that and get all the air out of the system. That's what you use. And in there is a little diaphragm, which is just basically, if you can imagine, a round piece of rubber, all right? And then there's a little mechanism in there that when you do that, it lifts and lowers the diaphragm, bit like a bellows, we'll say, okay? That's very simple. And there's two little valves in there so that as it draws the fuel in and then goes the other way to push it out, that little valve opens and that valve closes and so on. So it keeps the flow coming one way. However, that's all very well, but when the engine's running, you want to be able to walk away and not have to stand there pumping fuel. And that's where this piece comes in here. This here, if you imagine this goes on the engine block, I'll show you, look. So there we go. Let's put that here. So that's what we got. Now, this piece here, that's the engine block. If you're looking from the front, all right, and we've just taken that off there, haven't we? So that cam basically, that arm basically goes in like that, and inside that engine, right, let's use ET's finger, like there, and we'll have a look and see. So can you see that there, this bit? So that's that lobe on that cam, and that's what engages on that arm at the back of the lift pump. So that you can imagine like this pen, right? Imagine this pen's rotating. Well, that's fine. I wouldn't do anything. I'd just rub up against it. But if this pen is round, if this pen was shaped a bit like a lemon, we'll say, so like that. Right? And there's your centre. Do you see how that going round, because it's off-centre, when it got to there, all right, be one thing. Then as it's trying to come round, because it's not going there, that part wants to be here now. But that's in the way. So what that does is that rides up and moves that arm. So that arm, because that's like an eccentric, what they call an eccentric, with that lobe, when that's going round past, look, that does the pumping. It's that simple. Right, muckers, so what we're going to do is make a gasket, and we're going to make a better one that actually just is a better fit, because the one, as I said, that was supplied with this pump isn't great. Right, so first off, we've got some alkaline gasket paper here. So we'll get a bit of that cut off and we can start making our gasket. Right, so here's our gasket material. And as I said, quite nice stuff. So I'll just cut a little bit out here so it's easier while I'm on camera, because I'll try to hold all this. So like I said, the first way is we can draw around the outline of the gasket, which I'll just do here, just for sort of demonstration purposes. Like that. Now you can see, but so here's another way as well. You could draw where the holes are, okay, and you could do that and cut them out. Here we go, we'll just do that. You can get special tools that actually just cut them when you hit them, like a punch, like a hollow punch, and they'll take the bolt holes out as well. Or you could tap it with, say, a ball peen hammer. But what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to alter how the inner shape will be cut out, because that's the bit I want to change. I want a bit more meat on that, because we don't need such a big gap. Okay, so as you can see, I've altered that slightly. There's more meat on there, and I can trim that accordingly, all right? But what I'm going to do first, I'm going to cut it, the inner part, cut it with a Stanley knife. Now, another quick thing, if you're cutting with a knife like this, don't cut it there. Always have your hand away from, so you're pulling away from your hand. So if it wants to slip, it's not going to take that web out. Guess how I know? I was actually cutting some Hessian sack one day and just had my hand in the wrong place at the wrong time. But yeah, it happens. And in theory, there you go. You can just trim that if you want to. Now, another way is you can take a pair of scissors like that and just gently trim.
Use a children's pair of scissors.
Again, and do it and check it again before you do it in small increments. Okay, so now you can see that's actually quite good on there, because it allows this to move right to the top extent there, and it's got clearance there to where the actual casting is. Now, I'll show you how to take those bolt holes out. And as I said, you could do them with the scissors, you could do them with the knife, you can do them with, as I said, a proper hollow punch, but we'll do it with the hammer. Right, so this is a ball peen hammer, all right? There's your hammer part, there's the piece for peening.
90% of the time, I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about.
Sort of knocking things over and, sort of tapping things over, rounding it over, that's what you use. However, I do actually like using this little one here. It's got a bit slightly longer. That's like a panel beating hammer, actually, but that does gaskets very, very well. Okay, so we know where we are roughly, and then you can kind of push and feel where the bolts are going to come through, the actual studs on the block. You can kind of push and feel that, look, and you can do that where the holes are. And then you can simply just tap around the hole. Right, You can actually see the holes come out of there already. And the piece of gasket is still in there. So that is what we want to do. There we go. I'll just trim that with a knife. Because what we've done is we've used the sharp edge on here to act as a blade almost. All right. Like I say, I like this hammer. It works well. But I've got smaller ones as well, so you can be very delicate on smaller holes. But yeah, this one always takes a sort of nice cut to it. Okay. You know, there's always a way out, if you know what I mean. There's always an option. And to be honest, if I wasn't trying to hold a camera and film as well at the same time, doing half of this, you know, you take a bit more time, you can get it even neater. But at the end of the day, it's a gasket. It's there to stop oil getting out. Now, before we put the pump back on Super Major, I just want to tell you about what happens when a lift pump fails. Right, so here's the lift pump, and you can see the diaphragm there sandwiched in between these two parts of the lift pump. And that is your diaphragm. As I said, it's just like, there's another little type here, it's a different type, but just like a neoprene rubber type thing. So what happens that when that cam is engaged on here and is making that arm move, that inside there is on the bottom, and then it makes this part rise and fall. So it's just sort of going up and down, sort of. Then these, either side, inlet and outlet, you've got these little one-way valves. And they allow the fuel to be drawn in one side from the tank. And then when, so that, say, is on that stroke down, so it pulls it in. And then the little valve closes, because they're spring loaders, that goes the other way to push the fuel out. And you got, as I said, you've got two little valves. Here's another one here on the outlet, and that does the same again. And that then opens up and lets the fuel out. And then it closes to stop the fuel drawing back, and that one opens, and so on and so forth. And that's how that pump works. Very, very simple. However, if that tears or gets a hole in it or just wears out and starts letting fuel through, the valves are no good. So even though the little valves want to close, because the fuel can get through the hole in the diaphragm, like that, let's say there's a small hole somewhere there, or it's torn or whatever, just worn out, the fuel can get through. So it then just sort of basically just pushes the fuel left and right, left and right. It doesn't get it anywhere. It just sort of does nothing. And when that happens, obviously the fuel isn't getting pushed to the filter, then through to the injection pump. The engine dies because it's starved of fuel. And it just, quite often, if you've got it running, it'll run. As soon as you turn it off, that's it. You ain't going to start it again. However, that diaphragm, if it's got a split or a hole in it, allows fuel where it shouldn't be, which is basically in the bottom there, the pump housing. And if it gets into there, it runs straight into there. And it just fills the sump up with diesel. Now, I often get messages from people that follow my channel and saying, Muck, I've got a David Brown or a John Deere or a Ford or whatever, and the oil level keeps rising in the sump. So I'm always like, right, what you want to do is feel it off the stick. It won't feel thick like oil, it'll be fairly thick. Yeah, it's fairly thin. Right, does it smell a bit like diesel? Yeah, it does. So the first thing to check is the lift pump. Now, I don't know why, but on a lot of other YouTube channels, they'll say, oh yeah, the seals are gone in the front of the injector pump. And what they're talking about is right down here where it goes into the timing housing. There are seals, obviously, where it's driven. But in all my years, I've seen about one pump fail badly enough where it actually wore the casing, to be fair, the actual where the housing was, and let fuel into the sump, all right? 9 times out of 10, in fact, 99% of the time, it will be the lift pump. Now, this one here, if you can see, look, is on the side of the pump. It's not on the block. So that is a much better system, really. You can see that where it's on there. It's not actually on the block. It's when the pump is turning, then the actual injector pump's turning. That's what makes that. It's the same sort of thing. It's just a more simple type pump. But there'll be a diaphragm in there, you see? You can see that's the diaphragm. And that works exactly the same way. But the cam as such is off the pump, not off the engine block. But yeah, they're always straight to, oh, that's what it is. And I'm like, have you tried the lift pump? Try the simple things first? Because as I said, 99% of the time, that's where it'll fail. But anyway, here's the thing. If that kind of thing happens on an engine, especially a turbocharged engine, all right? So you're feeding fuel, diesel fuel, into the sump, which makes the oil thinner. And if that's being put round the turbo, that's spinning round there, but the seals aren't great on the turbo. They're good enough for oil. Thick, you know, higher viscosity, thicker oil, lovely. But now it's been thinned down. And now it can start to weep through the seals of the turbo, and the turbo can throw this oil-fuel mixture directly in to the combustion chamber. You know where this is going, don't you? So all of a sudden the revs start picking up because you've got more fuel going in, this lovely diesel oil mixture. And you, oh, well, bloody hell, I'll stop that. And you stop it and you pull the stop for your engine. And that's like, yeah, I know you've stopped my fuel, but I've got my own fuel now. I'm sucking it from the actual sump. And the turbo becomes a pump, draws more of this up and puts more in. And then the revs increase more and more. And there's nothing you can do about it. You could hopefully smother it on the air intake, maybe, but quite often by this time the turbo is just having a mega party. It's drawing this lovely fuel oil mixture up from the sump, feeding itself, putting it in, and then it's revving harder and that's sucking harder, and and eventually you've got a runaway. Not one of these ones where they go, oh yeah, this Detroit went from naught to, flat out. That's clear, right? That's just naught to flat out, it's just high RPM. That means it reached its limit, its RPM limit. That's not a runaway. A runaway is when it will not stop and it keeps running and there's nothing you can do to stop it. So that can often happen when you get a lift pump failure. And it's putting, fuel, rather than putting it in the injector pump, it's putting it into the sump and it's thinning the oil. So, yeah, it can end up badly. But 9 times out of 10, you'll find that the thing won't start. Or you'll find that your oil level's rising. And if that's the case, do your lift pump, drop your oil out, change your oil. Job's a good one. All right, let's get this refitted. Now, just so you know, this one's quite easily done because you just slide this in and then up. But you've got to get this part here, the right side of the cam. You want to put the gasket on. I've just gone through all that trouble. I want to make sure it goes on now. Right, you want to go in and make sure that the lever arm here goes up the right side of the cam. So do it like that and then push down, put that on the block. That if you've got air going in your system on a regular basis and stopping the engine, you've got to bleed it, that's the side where you're getting air through. That can really be the only side where there's a problem. And 9 times out of 10, that means there's a hole in the line, okay? So, from the tank, somewhere all the way along here to here, there may be a hole in the line. Why? Because that's the only side of the pump that's sucking and can draw air in through a pinprick hole or a loose fitting. The other side is under positive pressure. So all you would see if you saw anything at all, you would see maybe like a coloration of like fuel dribbling. You think, where's that coming from? You clean it off with a rag and then it just starts to appear being wet again. Well, that's the reason, because that's under positive pressure. You're not drawing air in from the pump side, the outlet side of the pump, to the filter and then onwards. So for diagnosis of stuff like that, that's always a good thing to remember. Right, turn the fuel on. Now, what I'll do is just a quick basic bleed to get any air that's drawn back. Do that. So that's operating that diaphragm on the inside. Now, sometimes there's nothing there. It's like just, oh, there's nothing. Because that isn't in the right place. That cam's pushing it in the right. So if you can just flick the engine over a bit, you'll find that'll find that spot. And then you can pump. Okay, look. And then you can see as well, look, in the bottom there, in that bowl, that's now full. All right? Because we got rid of that air. So that's full. That's now full, because, there he goes, whoops. Now, that shouldn't take too much to get this old girl fired up. Now, this starter needs to come off this because
It's a piece of junk.
it's been a pain. It's been off once, it needs to come off again. But anyway, out of gear, in neutral, in the whole drive thing. Because I don't like standing here, but
Shake hands with danger.
needs must when you're on your own. Right. See what happens. Now, it might stop. There may be some air in it, but let's see. So inside there now, that is doing that. And that is then so, Muckers, question time. I've got, as I said, I want to get that starter off, and I can get that sent off this week and done. Just want to overhaul it, just sticking in various places. But other than that, this thing runs like an absolute dream. As I said, it's very original. You know, there's no dents and rot like there normally is everywhere. It is untouched, really. So it's one of those ones, what do you do? Do you, and we've asked this question before, we've said, you know, would you paint it or would you preserve the patina? But that's the point, Muckers. That's a decision I'm not going to make. This week's question time, and where I want your opinion, what do we do with this old Super Major? Do I sell it? Just put it on the open market and sell it, you know, put it in, I don't know, in Facebook Marketplace, or, you know, send it, you know, to auction or something like that? Or do we do as we've done before with the little Dexter, and I raffle it? So we can have tickets, like, you know, £10 a ticket, and then you get a chance to win the Super Major. And then whoever wins it, that's down to you as to what you do with it. Do you paint it? Do you preserve this patina? I don't know. And as I said, it's not going to be a decision I make. So, for this week's question time, Muckers, all right? Put your answers in the old squid pit, in the old comment section below this video. And all you've got to do is simply put raffle or sale. All right? Your choice. Put your answers in the old squid pit below. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed it. And, you know, please give the video the old thumbs up, because it makes a big, big difference to the channel. And obviously you can go and see, if you want any merchandise and things, it's lordmuckshop.com, can't they? Yeah, you can go over there, can't they? But yeah, your support is very much appreciated, as I said. And just liking the video and sharing it and that makes a massive difference to the channel. Because YouTube certainly won't help you, that's for sure. You got to go home? You got to go to sleep now. You have a little curl up. Oh, all right. Anyway, Marker, just while she sleeps, we'll catch you on the next one. Until then, do well.